Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a great Friday the 13th. Coming at you live in a little different location, a little different tone tonight. Um, Want to address some things. So when we're officially live, I'll let you know. But guys, we're on replay. If you're watching me right now, um, hope you're ready to rock. For those of you coming in live, please, as we get going here, feel free to please spread this out. What's up, Patty? I'm going to say hello for the first minute or two, and then I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm probably not going to ask for too much call and response tonight, guys, because I want to be able to put this out on some other places, other platforms to get some information out. So what's up, Nicole? What's up, Magdalena, Debbie, Candace, Joe? As you guys come on here tonight, realize that we're going to be, I'm going to hit some points tonight I think are going to be really important during this time of quote-unquote crisis. And I want you guys to please let others know what's going on. Invite people to watch, put it on your page in a post, private message in a group, whatever it may be. Because I think I have some points to make that I may have made in some other previous videos, but I think it's just kind of important for everyone out there to kind of see and hear and maybe just stop and think. So you'd have to be literally living under a rock to not know about COVID-19, the novel coronavirus that is spreading across the world. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of hysteria, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of truths and half-truths and a lot of things we just don't know yet. But I think the biggest thing we have to start looking at is what are we doing and how we're reacting to this, I'll call it a crisis. Because whether you believe that this is a overblown mess or that this is the end of days, either way, it's the response is leading to a worldwide crisis. And here in the U.S., it's becoming worse and worse every day. And the biggest part of this all is about fear. I had some notes here. I just don't want to forget. So let's talk a little about the human brain just for a second, guys. There are two main things I want to talk about. There's this thing called the prefrontal cortex. That's right here. That's where we do cognitive thought, logical thinking. And then there's a part in our temporal lobes here called the amygdala. It looks like an almond. That's why it's called the amygdala. That is a fear center of our brain. 95% of the connections that we have from our prefrontal cortex go right to our amygdala and back and forth. 95% of those connections, guys. Think about that for a minute. That our prefrontal cortex, our cognitive thought, and our fear center are completely so linked. Okay? And one can turn off the other and vice versa. So think about that. When you're in a fear state, this ain't working. Your prefrontal cortex is shutting down. Okay? It's just what it is. And it's a survival piece, right? If you were walking through the woods and a tiger jumped out at you, you'd want to run for safety and not have to think about it. Because by the time you thought about why the tiger was there, if you thought about it first, you'd be eaten. So the goal is to get you to survive and go. Right? Shut down this thing where you're thinking and just react to survive. And unfortunately, what we're all living in right now is a state of fear. And when you live in a state of fear, this shuts down this. It shuts it down. And we're not thinking. And when you live in a state of fear, safety is all you're concerned with. Safety makes us do strange things. Safety makes us make people drink isopropyl alcohol and wash their hands in vodka. Or in France, they were saying that people were doing cocaine thinking that would stop the coronavirus. Like illogical things. And when you're in a fear state, when this isn't working, you're willing to give up something very important, and that's your power. Because you're willing to give up almost anything in that fear state to be safe again. Right? And what happens is when you're living that fear state, we don't necessarily think from a logical mindset. We kind of just believe what we're told, and we just kind of run with it because we're under the auspices that we believe that something's going to protect us and save us. Okay? And these are important things to remember because when you're stuck in that fight or flight response, when you're stuck in what we call limbic lock and load, all right, the frontal lobe flip, where this is shut off, you can't think logically. But at the same time, when you start thinking logically, you can shut down fear. So it's important when we're in moments like this, times like this, that you take stock take stock and step back and say, okay, what's going on? What's really going on? Let's look at this from a logical standpoint. Let's not look at it from a fear-based standpoint. And then when you start doing that, you can see that maybe things are not what they're supposed to be. We live in a 24-hour news cycle, right? We've been living in one for a long time, but social media now is very different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The last time we had one of these really big outbreaks, right? We'll talk about the H1N1, the swine flu, in 2009, 2010. Do you think social media is what it is now? No, guys, there's just so much ever-present information, so many things. The news won't stop talking about this. Everywhere you go, it's coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. People are talking about it, people are doing it, people are reacting out of fear. And they constantly breathe that fear. And it spreads. Fear spreads like a virus. Fear is the biggest virus we're dealing with right now. Because I will tell you right now that the fear of corona is infecting more people than the disease itself ever will. And that is a really dangerous thing, because that's, again, when we start to give up our power, when we start to think illogically, when we stop to maybe not think about the people around us in a way that maybe we're not be as empathetic or sympathetic. Maybe we all say we are because we're all running home to be quarantined, but understand that when you live in that fear state, you're not living to your fullest of the best version of yourself and be able to give the best of who you are to this world, or you're also not living to your highest truth. At the same time, you've given up something. You give away your power. And we're also in an election year, okay? And this is not necessarily a political conversation, but understand that when you're in an election year, no matter what side you're for, things like this help them, all right? It allows people in power to take more power because you're willing to give up power to not be so afraid anymore. You're willing to give up power to feel safe, real or not. You're willing to give it up to feel safe, to shut down that fear center in your brain, to go, all right, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm okay. To shut off the whole fight or flight survival mode piece. Listen, the coronavirus is a real virus. The coronavirus has killed people, and I'm not minimizing that. But what I am saying is we're reacting to this virus in a way that doesn't match its ability to destroy our population of this world. If you told me this was Ebola virus or something like that, I could maybe understand our reactions. But we are coming at this with, it's like trying to kill a spider with a sledgehammer. All right? Because we're trying to contain this. We're trying to contain this. I don't know how well a job we're really doing of containing us. It's in 138 countries. All right? And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the stats and some comparisons so you guys can maybe see this, because you got to start looking at it through the logical prism. All right? It doesn't mean don't take precautions. It doesn't mean just be flippant and go out there and lick a subway handle. All right? But it does mean that you need to sometimes just use some common sense. People walk around elbow bumping instead of shaking hands. But then they'll open that door to the store, right? You'll have people that wear a mask, okay? Which is not, unless it's form-fitted, it's letting things in. Doesn't matter, all right? But they'll take it off to eat their food in their public place, and then they'll put it back on. And then that worker who was in the back who didn't have a mask on, who brought out the plate to serve you when they're not wearing gloves, and then they're passing the ketchup or the hot sauce or whatever that was sitting on the table from the last how many weeks, and people are touching you. Like, do you guys see, like, the logic piece? This isn't there. All right, we have to just stop and think. We're buying out everything of hand sanitizer and toilet paper there is, like toilet paper, guys. And we started running out of toilet paper and selling out of it well before we went into these crazy spike in the U.S. I wonder what everyone was doing before this. And this is at a premium right now. Like, you can't get it. So even if you just ran out on your own for normal reasons, you just can't get it. Does that sound normal? You can't get water. You can't get the basics because everyone thinks we are going into, literally, it's like I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now. When the people, the survival of the doomsdayers, right? So just think about that. Think about how we're behaving, what we're doing. Again, sometimes it's reactionary. It's like, well, I'm actually running out of toilet paper. I better go get some because there'll be none left. Or, I'm actually running out of X, Y, Z. And then, so yeah, there's the fear of the fear. But here's what I will say. When you are in fear, you're not thinking. And you're easily led by people of power who promise some form of safety, right? Apocalypse, thank you, Alicia. Some form of safety. We're becoming fear zombies, guys. So when you talk about a zombie apocalypse, right? That crazy virus or whatever, all these movies talk about World War Z and The Walking Dead and The Last of Us and all these other things, right? It's something that spread and it was end of days. That is not coronavirus, guys. It's not even close. You know what is close? Our reaction to it. The fear that is spreading that is making us fear zombies. It's a fear zombie virus, and it's not the virus, it's a reaction to the virus. It's the hype, the hysteria that's going on. And I've talked to so many people that don't see it that way, or at least when we're talking, it doesn't seem that they see it that way, but mob mentality takes over sometimes, guys. When the ever droning news cycle in the background is constantly on whatever station you're watching, CNN or whatever, telling you corona, 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 corona. That's all we think about. It's all we see. It's all we manifest. And then we live in fear. So when we talk about people dying from the coronavirus, and there's only been, I believe it's 48 deaths in the U.S. Okay, and again, I'm not minimizing the deaths of anyone, this country or other, but understand that just that fear and anxiety piece of it, how many other people are dying from that? Just from that. How many people have crippling anxiety that have now blown up? Agoraphobes who may be getting out of the house and will never leave again. All right, what about those people that, because of this, have got themselves so worked up they're having heart attacks and dying, strokes, whatever? We don't know. We don't track those kinds of things. I can promise you that the fear of this virus is probably going to kill more people than the virus ever will in this country. And what is it doing to those young kids? All right, I have a patient coming tomorrow, little girl, who is literally having almost like a nervous breakdown because of the anxiety and fear about what's being perpetuated out there. And these little kids, they don't get it. Their young little subconsciouses are being taught some really horrible lessons right now. All right? This is, they're going to remember this, they're going to look back, and it's going to shape these poor little kids. All right? So we're not thinking about that. We're all thinking about that one little thing. Well, what if, God forbid, I give it to so-and-so? And I get that. All right? I get that totally, because no one wants to be responsible for someone else getting hurt or dying, right? Well, what if I bring it home to so-and-so? I mean, I think sometimes people have to also understand what a carrier truly is, by the way. All right? People seem to think a carrier of a virus is anyone's ever been exposed. That's not what a carrier truly is. A carrier is someone that has had the disease penetrate into them and has not become symptomatic yet, but it is incubating in them, and they're shedding live virus. Or they have brought it in and incubated, and they never show symptoms, like typhoid Mary. All right? Maybe if literally someone with coronavirus sneezed on you, you might have some of that on you for a little while. But in general, it's not about just because you happen to maybe be exposed. If your immune system is strong and you are not fertile soil, you will not let those things in. It can't colonize. It can't become to the point where it can propagate, and spread out of you. All right? So just because you may have been somewhere that had it doesn't mean that you are now a carrier. Like that cruise ship that was quarantined for those 2 weeks. Was it 2 people had coronavirus? No one else who came down with it from that one cruise ship? I could be wrong on my numbers, but that's about what it was. But what people think a carrier is, they think that everyone on that ship is now infected. And if that's what it was, that would be the case. We wouldn't be able to contain this. All right? And if germ theory were real, we wouldn't be able to contain any virus. And just so you know, germ theory states that if you're exposed to a virus or a bacteria, you will get sick. And it's been disproven, right? How many of you have been around sick people? How many of you have been in a house where everyone got the flu but one person, usually mom, who's the one who's strong enough to get through, not to get sick? If germ theory were real, everyone will get sick. Germ theory is not about the seed, it's about the soil. Germ theory is all about a seed. If I took a pumpkin seed and planted it in the desert, it's not going to grow. Okay? So you need to make yourself arid soil. You need a strong immune system. Germ theory is not real. There's more bacteria, fungi, and viruses living on us and in us than are us. There are more cells that are foreign to us right now living on our skin, on our surfaces, in our orifices, and in our intestinal tract than the actual cells we have in our body. So it's a fact. And when we start to disrupt that, we can cause more problems. That's why these hand sanitizers, one of the reasons they're not so good. If you're constantly rubbing with hand sanitizer, you're killing good and bad bacteria, which breaks down your barrier to things getting in. And it also dries out and cracks your skin, which allows other bad things in. So this stuff, guys, especially long-term use, no bueno. It's not good. It's actually going to make you more susceptible. Some of the healthiest kids used to be the ones who used to play in the dirt because they got exposed to things, get their immune system to learn so they could hold things off. So I hope you guys are finding this helpful. If you feel this is helpful and you think more people need to see this, because I do, and that's why I'm doing this again, I want you guys to please spread this out. Put those people, put it on your page in a post, and private message in a group, whatever it may be. Have a watch party, invite someone to watch, because I think more people need to see this. Because the more people start to stop and listen and think, because no one's telling them this in the regular media. I have to say, on Fox News the other day, I did see some people looking at this a little more balanced. But I will say is that the more people see this, the more they may come out of that amygdala, out of their fear state, out of that limbic lock and load, and literally turn this back on and truly start to think properly, because we're acting in a way that is way, it's too overt of a response to what it really is. So here's the next thing I want to say, and I've said this before. We're looking at this virus, right? This novel coronavirus. Novel. There are other coronaviruses. SARS was a coronavirus. Okay? There's different strains. This happens to be the new one. Now, understand that this novel virus means new. And we're tracking it. And we're tracking it like we've never tracked a virus before. Never. Never have we tracked a virus like this before. Okay? Between social media and how small the world has gotten, we're tracking it. And when you track it, you see where it goes. You see how it's moving. And yes, it looks really scary. And it's real. I'm not saying this is a fake disease, okay? Like fake news. All right? But what I'm saying is that if we truly tracked other viruses like this, we would be in quarantine all the time. Think about the flu. Every year we check the flu. We're not tracking it like this. But if you actually, I'm going to give you some stats on the flu. Let's talk about the flu for a minute. Because the flu comes every year. Flu season runs from October through May, right? So the flu. Let's pull up some stats on the flu. Here's the stats on, well, let's talk about COVID-19 first, guys. So right now, as of today, okay, what were my stats? I'm sorry, as of yesterday, I do have a couple different updates on the I just want to make sure I pull up the right numbers for you guys. As of today, there was 145,341 cases in the world. 5,416 deaths with 70,931 recovered. That's the numbers right now. Okay? So that's the numbers as of right now for coronavirus worldwide since it started. So here's what the CDC's numbers are. For the CDC's own numbers, for the flu in the United States, flu season from October 1st through March 7th as of now. They estimate, because they don't know how many are actually reported, 36 to 51 million flu illnesses. Okay. 17 to 24 million flu medical visits. Wow. 370 to 670,000 flu hospitalizations, with between 22 to 55,000 deaths. So, if you look at these numbers, you tell me, just straight up stats, which is more dangerous? Coronavirus or the flu? We go through flu season every year. It kills tens of thousands of Americans every year. Coronavirus so far in the U.S. has killed 48. Again, every life is important. I'm not minimizing anything, but you have to look at it. At some point, you have to somewhat be an actuary and say, what are we doing? We don't treat the flu like this. And many of you may think, well, we had the flu vaccine. That's going to protect everything. It's going to help us. No, guys. The flu vaccine, whether you believe in vaccines or not, there's two things you need to know about the flu vaccine that no one tells you. Okay? One, in the flu vaccine's own literature, it's 25 to 33% effective. And what that means is that 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 people that get it will actually have enough antibody response to technically fight off the flu. So you've already taken, so if everyone got a flu shot, 1/3 to 1/4 of them actually will totally, quote unquote, be protected. But the second thing is this, even if you are protected, they always guess wrong. So the flu vaccine doesn't actually contain the flu that's going on right now. They guessed last year what would happen this year, and guess what? They were wrong. And they're wrong all the time. And right now there is no coronavirus treatment. And one of the things you're not supposed to treat it with is antibiotics. Yet, we don't know what they're treating people with. We're not being told. That gentleman who died in New Jersey the other day, I don't know, I think there's only been one so far in Jersey. I don't know if there's been more since Monday, but he was treated with high-dose antibiotics and Tamiflu, neither of which considered normal treatment for the coronavirus. There is no normal treatment. They're working on some drugs. There's some things that supposedly have worked against SARS that they think are going to be very promising. Again, I'm not going to get into the pharmaceutical side of it, but understand that they're not necessarily treating everyone the right way. So let's imagine that they're doing things, because again, in medicine, there's a need to intervene. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if your interventions are antithesis to what they're supposed to be, they can negatively impact an immune system and push you further over the edge. We don't know. Look at those deaths in Washington. All right, of all the deaths, 31 of them were in Washington State. 21 or 28 were all in that one nursing home. We don't know how they treated those people. We don't know if they did things that were good, bad, or otherwise. But I'll tell you, because they had 50-something cases in that one place, and half of them died, I don't think whatever they did worked so well. Okay, the whole point was give them oxygen, keep them hydrated, things like that. Those are what you're supposed to be doing. All right, there are other things that I know of, from a holistic standpoint, that can support immune system and immune function. Excuse me. It's not coronavirus. I just had a sniffle. Does that make sense? Like, there's things you can do, but they're not considered traditional, so no one's going to do them. But understand that we don't even know what we're doing in treating, but when we look at these numbers, if you're telling me that even if the number is in the low end, the 22,000 deaths so far in flu season in the United States versus the 48, what's more dangerous? And so what I'm saying is, if we truly track the flu, the way we track this virus and paid attention to it, because there is some tracking going on, but no one pays attention to it. Right? No one's going, oh my God, the flu's coming. Everyone cancel school, close Manhattan, ban travel to Europe. It's not, call it basically martial law in New York. It's not. We would all resist that, right? If this flu season we decided before Corona, let's say if Corona didn't exist, and let's say this flu season we decided to go after the flu like we went after coronavirus, how many of us would really allow that to happen? I don't think many people would. Because we've dealt with it this long, right? And if you get the flu, you get sick, you get better. And most people who are getting coronavirus are getting sick and getting better more than do with the flu. And in fact, if you look at the cross-section of people that are more susceptible to flu, that killing them, as well as the coronavirus is a smaller subset. In this state, it's been the average age of 80 with immunocompromised, especially respiratory and cardiovascular. All right, one person has died who was 40. I don't know the details of his health status, but they weren't good. The point is, guys, that this is an overblown reaction. Now, again, I try to look at the bright side of this, right? My hope is that it shows that there are places where we could do better. God forbid there was a really bad viral outbreak, so we can be more prepared for next time. But I will tell you, the reason why it blew through Italy, by the way, is they were woefully unprepared for any kind of healthcare challenge. This wasn't about Corona for Italy. This is about an infrastructure from a socialist country that was not ready for an influx of ill people. And they didn't know how to handle, control, or anything. So it spread, and unfortunately more people died because they don't have the infrastructure. All right? A bad flu probably could have done something similar. I don't know. But that's what we're seeing. And one of the reasons why it was more prevalent there is because there's a large population of people from China that come there to steal intellectual property from the fashion world there. And the reason why Iran had so many cases is because no one's doing business with Iran but China. So in South Korea, you got proximity. Look at Japan. Their proximity too, but they're minimal cases. So guys, and what we're also seeing, if you look at the numbers in Italy, almost all of them were in the northern portion of the country. There's very few, I think maybe 9 cases last I saw, in the southern portion of Italy. Because it doesn't do well in the warmer climate. So as we get to the warmer season, we're going to see this thing go away. And yes, some of the measures we're taking will make an impact. But as always, there's a lot of things that viruses do this anyway. Why is there a flu season? Okay? Because viruses are like this. They're cyclical. Some has to do with weather, some has to do with people's overall health. All right? Things like polio were already on the wane before we even came out with the vaccine. All right? Pertussis was already on its way down well before we made a whooping cough vaccine. And people are like, well, why is it coming back? Oh, because it's non-vaxxers. No, it's because it's coming back on its own. And people don't know how to identify it anymore. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. So I want to talk about a couple other things. So look at what we're doing for this specific. Look how we're reacting to this virus. We're shutting down schools. We're not telling people not to go in public. No public gatherings over 500 people. I'm going to talk about that for a second because in New York State, right now, we're not allowed to have any public gathering over 500 people. Okay. So have any of y'all been in a Costco or Target in the last 2 days? I can promise you there's well over 500 people in that store all day long at one time with lines around the store. Imagine a Costco coming in and a line going from the front all the way back and wrap around half the store. All right? People coming in on top of each other, pushing around, trying to fight their way through, grabbing all the different shopping carts, touching this and putting it back. Someone else, if you want to worry about transmission, why are we not closing those places down? I mean, I understand people need to get their stuff, but it's a fear piece to it too. You don't say, oh, it's the economy. No, because we're destroying the economy in plenty of other places by shutting things down. Sporting events, Broadway, whatever. All right, so it's not about making sure that Costco makes money. It's about the fact that people need to get ration stuff too, but it also is about helping the fear. They're going to say it's to prevent fear. We're going to keep people healthy and allow them to go to quarantine, but it feeds the fear narrative. It does. It feeds the fear narrative to let those places be packed. So everyone thinks they got to go out and they got to think this is the end of the world. This is the second coming of the zombie apocalypse. All right? We're all becoming fear zombies because of all this. All right? So let's talk about this too. We're stopping certain things from happening, right? Let's talk about something a little bit different. Let's talk about cigarettes. Okay? One of the reasons why we know cigarettes are bad, right? It's been proven they cause lung cancer and lots of other diseases, emphysema, COPD, so a lot of lung cancer, things that these people are actually who do these things are actually more susceptible to this virus, which is the second story. Do you realize that 1 in every 5 smokers per year die in the U.S.? Do you realize that 480,000 deaths from cigarette and secondhand smoke every year in the U.S.? All right? When you talk about secondhand smoke, I mean, it kills 70,333 people from lung cancer and 34,000 cardiovascular deaths every year from secondhand smoke. Yet we can't get rid of cigarettes because what? Because of the tobacco industry. That's going to put out all these companies, all these people will be out of work, and there'll be all these farmers who can't make money anymore. So we cripple this portion of the economy and cause some unemployment, right? So we can't get rid of cigarettes. But look what we're doing to our economy right now. Because of this virus, which has literally killed 48 people in the U.S., okay? 5,000 people worldwide, a little over 5,000 worldwide. While cigarettes are killing 480,000 a year, we can't shut down the tobacco industry. But we can shut down the country, and we can shut down half the world's economy and tank the stock market. But we can't get rid of tobacco because that would be bad for the economy. Do you guys see what's going on here? Just the logic of it just blows my mind. Like because people choose to do that? Okay, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's because people choose to do that. Well, how about this? You know how people die? The third leading cause of death. Third leading cause of death in this country. You know what that is? Medical errors. 250,000 up to maybe 440,000 deaths a year are attributed to medical errors. 250 to 440,000 deaths a year are attributed to medical error, the third leading cause of death in the U.S. I don't see them taking doctors and just not having them anymore. I don't see people not allowed to have, elective surgery anymore. Do you see that happening? I'm not saying it should, but do you see the reaction difference? 250 to 440,000 deaths of basically medical error per year in this country alone versus 48 deaths from coronavirus. Yet we're not doing anything. What are we doing about that? No one talks about it. When you get these morbidity rates of what kills people in the U.S., you never list this because it's never, even though it's a third leading cause, because it's not a disease. But it's stoppable, right? Yes, there's mortality and morbidity conferences. They go to try to figure out what they did wrong, but that number should have come down precipitously if we were taking real intervention. But look what we're doing here. Do you guys see the imbalance? And it's really all driven by one thing, guys. One thing. Fear. Fear. And the reason we're driving this with fear is for power. Because the more you instill fear, the more people are willing to give up, the more people in power gain power. So I want to talk to you a little about New York. For those of you living here, you know. Well, actually you don't, because every day I talk to patients on my table, maybe one or two even knew what I was talking about. So on March 3rd last week, Governor Cuomo passed a bill. Almost overnight. He did it kind of under cover of darkness, and no one really knew what was in the bill. But it was a bill to put $40 million to helping with fighting and testing for coronavirus. Okay, fine. Now, supposedly he took that from important things in the budget, but whatever. We're not going to talk about that. But no one read the rest of the bill. What he slipped in there. And I can promise you that it was slipped in there under the guise of how we can help and protect you. Because again, when you're in fear state, you're willing to give up whatever you can to get into safety. You're not thinking. And any lawyer will tell you, any lawyer worth their weight, that when you have a contract between two people or any group of people or any things, and there's ambiguity in that contract of what something means, that's where people go to court. That's when problems happen because interpretation happens. So the more fine point you can put on things, the less chance you have for people misinterpreting things, being misunderstood, or doing the wrong thing based on what a contract says. Same can be said for a bill. So when you read this bill, I think it's S7919, I believe it is. I could be wrong with the number, but I just don't have it right in front of me. But think about it this way. It says in the bill that in a state of emergency, that Governor Cuomo can do something specific. I'm going to talk about that. So he defines a state of emergency. There's literally a paragraph this long about all the things that can cause a state of emergency. Tornado, flood, hurricane, who knows. And in there, one of them was a healthcare disaster. It doesn't define what that is. It just says healthcare disaster. Okay? So, with a healthcare disaster, he can declare a state of emergency. Obviously, this was a healthcare disaster, at least according to what we're seeing. Real or not, I'm telling you, I don't know how much of a disaster it truly is, but whatever. His judgment was that it was a healthcare disaster. On Saturday, the 7th, he declared a state of emergency in the state of New York. And by triggering that, he triggered the next two portions of this bill. And the next portion of this bill is what should scare every New Yorker and possibly everyone in this country to death. Because this is the fear that you should, and this is not to scare you guys to breed more fear, but it's to wake people up to see it. Because unless you know it's there, you can't do anything to stop it or to change it. And what it says is that he has the power to suspend any law or statute for 30 days. And they can actually extend it from there. Any law or statute for 30 days can be suspended in the state of New York right now because we're in a state of emergency by the governor. That's it. Doesn't define what that is, doesn't define what he can do, doesn't define what laws and statutes he can't touch. Any law or statute can be suspended for 30 days. And then it goes on to say he can do whatever he needs to do to expedite emergency services and protect public health. So basically he can take your rights and then forcibly do whatever he feels is necessary. He feels is necessary. And this is now a law in the books. This isn't just about coronavirus. This is about everything else. So fear led to more power in one individual in this state specifically. Other states have called it state of emergency, but I don't think they have these bills on the docket. I don't think they do. But it was slid in there. Coronavirus, we're going to protect people. We're going to do what we have to do. Woo! Okay, Thank God we passed this bill. Now we can actually go after it. But no one looked at all the other pieces of that bill. So on Saturday the 7th, he declared a state of emergency, and on Monday we had the National Guard in New Rochelle. So anytime you've ever seen the National Guard usually called out for something, it's mostly to help and aid, right? Help keep the peace and bring aid to people, right? Make sure people are getting safe, they're getting removed from flooding buildings, they're doing whatever to make sure they can bring food and water and supplies and FEMA and stuff like that. In New Rochelle, they don't need any of that. They were literally brought in, even said to brought in, to make sure people didn't go into these places in New Rochelle like they were for public gatherings. It sounds like a police state to me. Again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what can happen. And I think we all have to think about what can happen here and what can happen anywhere in this country, because fear is taking over. All right? It's fear, because it doesn't stop. What's to stop them? I'm not saying it's going to happen. What's to stop them from coming to your house, force quarantining you, and force vaccinating you? Or taking over your house and use it for a quarantine, or do something to your loved ones, your family, your home, your property, your livelihood, all in the name of health, all in the name of what he deems healthy and necessary. And if that can happen here, why can't it happen anywhere else in this country? I don't know about you, but that's not the U.S. that I know of. There's not one bit of constitutional law in that law, but it's there, it's on the books. And this is there until someone repeals it or someone fights it. The way to give that is to give voice. And again, I'm really happy that all of you have been watching tonight, because I will say this. If you really want to stop a disease, you should let Facebook and the people who work there take over, because when they want you not to be seen on Facebook, they can stop it really quick. I used to get 10 to 30,000 views of video at minimum before they changed an algorithm almost 2 years ago. Now I'm lucky if I get 1,000. So if we should maybe hire them to come in and shut down this virus, because they sure as heck know how to shut down people getting word out across Facebook. Just a little humor for you guys. But these are things you guys need to know. All right? And when we look at some of these stats, and just see where it's at, a lot of them, there are clusters of it, right? But when you look at some of these things, basically everyone's been over 60 to 80 years old. All right? You're looking at these numbers of the cases of deaths. 31 were in Washington alone. All right? And I believe, if I remember the number here, I think it was 28 were all in that one place. And they had 57 cases. So what do we do? Right? What do we do? So the question is, all right, you just explained to us about the fear. You just explained to us about why there are plenty of other more dangerous things out there that we just don't even look at or focus on. And you understand that, God, what if I get affected? What if I get my mom who's getting emphysema infected? That's a real fear. I get it. And it could possibly happen. I'm not lying. All right? But the percentage of chance of that happening and the percentage of chance of death compared to you giving her the flu or a common cold that then leads to pneumonia, all right, is so much greater. It's so much greater. And why do we not ever look at? We don't. How many times have people gotten what they thought was a flu or a flu-like illness? Right? How many times? I thought I had the flu. They tested me. I didn't have it. Okay, but you had a similar symptoms, right? Did they type it? Did they make its picture up there? It looks like the New Year's Day ball from in Times Square. And you see all different color versions of it on every different newscast? No. If they did that, they might then start tracking it and go, oh my God, it's an epidemic. This virus is going around. And if we saw any of them actually got to people who were already immunocompromised and they died, what would we do with that? We're not. And remember, this is not hitting the other immunomatures. You're not seeing a bunch of kids dying with this. All right? There's going to be a vaccine, guys. There's going to be. There's going to be some kind of treatment. And I hope it's a treatment that is going to help people to get better without causing other further harm to their immune systems in the future. We don't know what those things are yet, but we'll see. But like everything else, this will come and go. And we'll look back in a few months and hopefully look back at it and go, all right, thank God that's over. Some people are already forecasting into the fall. Because the fear that's going to get up, it's going to start coming down as we get into the summer months, and it's going to come spiking back up in September, October. We don't know. But let's fear forecast that too. Let's get ready for that. Guys, we need to get this country back up and running. We need to get this country back on its feet. Because the more we do this, I don't know, do you see what's happening? Because right now, it hasn't really affected too many people's businesses yet. right? It's infecting, people going to movies. It's affecting Broadway and productions, and then it's getting into sporting events, and how much money the NBA and NHL is losing right now. Things like that. The ticket brokers, they're lucky if they can survive through this. The travel agencies, the hotels, all these things. All right. How many things are being put off? How much is life in general, in progress in the country and in the world, stopping because of this? Because all our focus is here. Yeah, we may get some new innovation out of this, and I hope that happens. We're seeing the school districts, at least here on Long Island, shifting into looking to Google Classroom, so that way they can still treat their kids from home. At home, even though they may be shutting the schools down. And what does that mean for the future? Well, it means that maybe those kids who get sick and have to stay home from school normally could actually still go to class and not miss it. Maybe it means that we don't have snow days anymore. People can actually still do it from home. I don't know what it means. There's always innovation that comes out of crisis, but and that's why I look for the silver lining. And then also that, do we learn something from this so we can make sure that two things. That one, if something really bad does come, that we're prepared. Because we are woefully unprepared for what is turning out to be a very mildly morbid virus. And maybe we'll understand that you can't just basically go after every little thing that happens because of fear. Listen, if this hadn't cut a swath to the Wuhan province of China, and it still happened, and then came here and some people passed, we probably would just chalk it up to another virus causing a pneumonia. Just like any other common cold, and we probably wouldn't even think twice about it. But the problem is, it brought a lot of hype. You had an election year, you have all this other stuff in the 24-hour news cycle, plus all the social media, and it caught fire. It was like someone literally dropped a match in a dry forest. It didn't take long for that to become a conflagration and just take over the whole thing, and now it's raging out of control. The fact is, we're talking about a fire that no one really sees. We're talking about this almost like it's burning down half a far. Like, imagine those giant forest fires we had in California almost every year that are raging out of control. The one that was in Australia, that's a great one. That thing was going gangbusters out of control, right? Devastating places and animals, everything else, right? But imagine that's how we talked about it, when really it was more of like a small 3-block fire. This is involving a lot of the world, but the heat from this thing is not what the size of the fire equals. If my analogy is making sense to you guys. My point is, we're coming after this like it's the towering inferno, when there maybe is only a couple of floors of this thing on fire. We have to really understand what's going on, guys. We have to then stop and think and listen and use common sense. And then hopefully tell your neighbor and your friend and your loved one and things like that to continue to please use some common sense, to start thinking, right? Before you make an action out of fear, out of not thinking for yourself, stop for a minute and say, you know what? I need to step back. I need to evaluate. I need to listen. I got to listen to both sides a little bit, and then I'm going to make a decision based on this, not based on this, not in the amygdala, not in the fear center driving everything, because that's what we're doing. All of this is based on fear, and yes, that doesn't mean be stupid. It doesn't mean ignore it, but the world is reacting a certain way, and one of the only ways we can truly make a change is to react a little differently. There needs to be pushback. There needs to be something pushing back. Because right now, the only pushback is these people put memes up or talking here and there to their friends, but no one's really doing anything. And the way to do it is we have to talk and keep spreading information. We have to be out here doing stuff like this. I shouldn't be one of the only people doing this. Please, and if I don't mind being that person, spread it out. All right? The only virus you should be spreading is my video. All right, guys? Put it out there. Invite someone to watch. If you came in late, go back and watch from the beginning. But invite someone to watch. Have a watch party. Put it on your page, in a private message, in a group, in a post, in a group, whatever. Please, I'm doing my best to help people just think. All right? You don't have to necessarily agree with me. I just feel like this side is not being talked about. There's really no one else saying what we're saying here. And I'm just going to keep pounding the drum because someone's got to do it. So I really appreciate you guys. I love you all. I really thank you for watching. I really thank you for supporting me through all this time, even before we had this crisis, if you will. and I'm going to be continue to be your resource. So again, thank you so much. I will try to go back and get all your comments later, whether it's live or on replay. And again, thank you so much. Have a great night, and everyone be safe and be healthy.